Welcome to the Discount Property Investor Podcast, where we show you how to buy real estate at a discount so you can create wealth over time and income today. Our mission is to share what we have learned from the experience of others and help you make more money investing like a pro. We want to teach you how to create wealth by investing in real estate, the Discount Property Investor way. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about a case study of a property that we just closed, and it was a property that we essentially wanted to wholetail, and then we decided that maybe we should wholesale it, and then at the end of the day, we went back to the wholetail. So it's going to be an interesting case study. Before we start, we want to encourage you to check out the free wholesalecourse.com if you haven't listened to any of our podcasts yet. The freewholesalecourse.com is an awesome resource we put together, Mike and myself, and it is everything you need to know about getting started in wholesaling. So it's an awesome program. If you've listened to previous podcasts, you've probably heard us say it a time or two.
Go check it out, though. That's the thing I want to encourage you to do, because some people are like, oh, is it, what is it, like a 5-minute video or something, like it's a quick thing? No, it's it's a complete course on wholesaling.
So true.
So that's why it's called freewholesalecourse.com, because it is literally a free course on wholesaling. If you haven't invested in real estate, haven't done any deals, you absolutely have to go check it out. It really is a free wholesale course.
Absolutely.
So
I was just checking the reviews this morning, and we have over 20 5-star reviews. And the reason that I mentioned that, 20 is not a ton by any means, but we're getting up there. But not a single review has come in that hasn't been 5 stars.
That's awesome.
And I wouldn't sit here and and lie about that, because
I didn't even know that. That's
great. We have the ability to not post the ones that we don't want to post, but every one that's come in, I've been like, yes, post, because boom, 5 stars. So
we can just turn off that filter pretty soon.
Right.
Let the reviews go through. Who cares?
That's right.
Again, once you get enough good ones, it looks
pretty
all go out, right?
Pretty cool course, guys. Check it out. We're really happy with it, and we're getting a ton of positive feedback. So, about this episode, wholetailing to wholetailing. This is a case study. Mike, what was the address of this one?
To Wholesale
or not?
Or To Wholetail? That's just the question, right?
Right.
So this one was it was a pretty good property. So it's a nice area in St. Louis, and because the market, and most likely in your area as well, the market is so good right now. Our strategy has been to wholetail if we can. If the property's in decent shape in a decent area, we're going to be able to maximize our return or our profit by putting it out to more buyers, potentially a owner-occupant as opposed to an investor buyer. So we're able to lock things up a little bit higher and hopefully get a higher profit margin. So
Absolutely.
This property was in, I think it's technically in Baldwin. I'm not sure if it was or not. It's 509 Kerrs Mill was the address.
That's right.
Here in St. Louis, in like I said, in West County, in Baldwin. And that is just a great market. Excuse me. A lot of my friends, our age group, 30s, 20s, 30s, first-time home buyers are really kind of drawn to this area because it's in West County, which is a higher dollar area for St. Louis, but it's not necessarily out of their price range. So it's not the top dollar area in St. Louis. So again, great area for us to try and do a wholetail deal. So this lead came in. We sent some direct mail. I believe this was an absentee owner.
I'm trying to find the...
the brief synopsis there?
Yeah, I wanted to just pull up the...
Sure. The stats.
Here we go.
Yeah, so this owner was, he was a landlord, and his tenant was getting ready to move out, and he actually lived out of state.
That's right. He lived out in Colorado, so he was an absentee owner landlord.
Right, so there's multiple reasons why he was, motivated to sell. He doesn't want to have to come in and deal with the rehab. I don't believe he had property management in place, so he was doing a lot of it himself from out of state, which is a great strategy again, depends on your goals. But anyway, so there was motivation there. He didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. He was tired of being the landlord, flew in to meet people. But what was happening, Dave, and you actually went on this appointment, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So he owned the house for I want to say they owned it for 25 years. And they had been renting it for the last 12. So I'm not very good with math. What's the difference on that? 17? 16?
12 and 25 is 13.
13. Oh, I'm terrible at math.
Yeah, that's bad.
That's real
You're
bad. Holy cow.
You're almost as good at math as you are at spelling.
Right. Oh, yeah. Those two aren't my strong suits. So, yeah, anyway, they owned it for about 25 years. They lived in it for 13-ish, and then they rented it for 12. And they lived in Colorado. So, you know, the tenants that they had were moving out, and they just didn't want to have to deal with doing this process again. They had been doing it for 12 years already. And you know, they were trying to get rid of everything they had in St. Louis, so that way when they went back to Colorado, they could stay in Colorado and they didn't have anything, you know, on any baggage left behind. So when I went on the appointment, the gentleman that sold the house to us was in town and he was showing it, and the tenant was at work. And I just want to talk just briefly about the competition on this particular deal. There was wholesalers or investor buyers, I should say is probably a better word for it, but there was other investors and buyers at the property when I arrived. And I was at the property for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, just did a quick little walk around, took some pictures, did some due diligence, you know, as far as just checking out the condition of it. And there was also buyers coming as I was leaving. Mm-hmm. And the window of time that this guy had set aside for showings was, I think, maybe 2 or 3 hours. I think it was 10 to 12 a.m. to check the property out. So, you know, there was tons of...
Well, it's kind of funny, too, and I don't know if you remember this or not, Dave. So the Discount Property Investors, we do a ton of mail. We do a ton of advertising, and this lead came into our system. And we sent one of our associates out to go and look at the property.
Oh, that's right.
Well, Dave also, prior to this, and myself as well, we had all done some direct mail prior to merging our companies. So David actually got a call from this gentleman from his previous efforts to, I guess, his cell phone. So he had set up an appointment as well. So Dave shows up, and you met one of our junior associates.
Yeah, so we sent one of our guys out to go buy the property, and then
didn't mean to call you out on it, but it's pretty funny.
You're not calling me out at all. That's perfect though, because it just goes to show you that, you know, whenever you drop a big bunch of mail, and you don't get any calls right away, it doesn't mean that people didn't get your letter and or saved your letter. So that's a great point. I had mailed this guy like 15 months prior, and he got a letter from me, and then I joined Mike and Bill and Ray at House Sold Easy Properties here and at Discount Property Investor, and you know, we had mailed him too. So he actually called both of our letters, and I just didn't put two and two together. Also, on that same topic or note, a good buddy of mine here in town, Jeremy, hadn't done direct mail in 5 years. 5. And he got a call from this guy. So
that's unreal.
This guy was essentially saving every letter that was mailed to him because he was out of state and he had a rental, and he knew at some point in time he was going to have to sell this thing.
I bet he did a sly broadcast to every investor.
Right, he might have, man. He might have. So it was pretty interesting though to see all the people that were there. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Competition's really high is the point.
Competition was super, super high on this one. So that covers kind of our lead source and motivation. So absentee owner mail. His motivation, you know, out of state guys. He didn't want to deal with the turnover anymore. You know, he had some pretty decent tenants in there, but 12 years out of state, coming back and forth, he was just done. He was just tired of it.
So we come in at a pretty competitive offer, and our thought is that we're going to wholetail it, because we kind of knew we had put in an offer at a price that we didn't necessarily think we'd be able to wholesale super easally, right? I mean, we're higher than our typical numbers, and we do that again to be competitive, so the seller gets the best deal, but then also, creating a win-win. That's always our effort.
So I'll give you a quick little information about it. So when we were there, we came, and we'd done a previous couple episodes, I think, about credibility packet and just being prepared and having comps. So when we went out there, you know, again, we had one of our junior buyers out there, our associates out there. So it was me and him. We kind of teamed up at that point because we're on the same team. You know, we weren't really trying to beat each other up.
Right.
But we both had credibility packets with us, and we asked the seller, we said straight up, hey, you know, what do you want for this property? And we already had comps and knew what the value of the property was. And he said, you know, I'd like to get somewhere between $150 and $155 for it. And we thought that already was a really fair offer. We didn't think that he was crazy for asking that, because we thought the property would be worth over 200 when fixed up, and it didn't really need that much work. So with that being said, we pulled out a contract right then and there, and we said to the seller, hey, if we paid you $156 for it, will you sign our deal right now? Because we didn't want him taking our offer and shopping it against all the other investor buyers here in town and creating a bidding war. We're not really into the whole bidding war game, especially if we can provide value and say, listen, here's what you're wanting, here's what we'll pay you. Like, this is exactly what you want, that's what we're going to give you. So in this scenario, it was a win-win. So we said, hey, here's what we'll pay you. And he said, no, I can't sign right now because I'm in the middle of an open house and I want to at least get other people through the door. So we said, okay, that's fine. We get it. We understand. However, we're going to give you a contract today for $156. And again, he was only asking $150 to $155. So we actually came in $1,000 higher than his asking price. However, we told him that he had until 10 p.m. that night to sign it. So we essentially gave him an acceptance period and said, here's what we'll pay you, is more than what you're asking. But again, we don't want you shopping this offer. Like, that's not really fair to us, and we just don't play that game. So if you want to sell this property to us for $156, you have till 10 p.m. tonight to sign our agreement, and we can close this deal in like 2 weeks. Sure enough, we called him at like 7 o'clock just to follow up with him to kind of remind him, hey, you only got a couple more hours. And he had a couple verbal offers, but nothing else in writing. We were the only one that showed up with the contract in hand and signed it and gave it to him. So sure enough, we won the deal.
Right, and that, again, I think is a kind of a bit of a testimonial to using a credibility packet or just showing up prepared, which is, if you go back and listen to the credibility packet episode, that's basically our message, is show up prepared to your appointments. Be ready to win the deal. You're there to buy houses. Let's go buy some houses, guys. That's the whole point of
Right.
what you're doing. You're not going there with the intent of hanging out and making a friend. Trick. You are going there with the intent of hanging out and making a friend with the seller, but you're also going there to buy that house from that person. You want to help them. So again, be ready to do it. And Dave was, as well as our associate buyer there. They were both there, ready to buy.
Not only did we leave our contract, we left our nice little folder with our proof of funds. We had a little trifold in there. We had our contract, which in this case we used a one-page, simple contract. This guy, I could just tell when I met him that he was a simple guy, and I didn't think that using our state board 6-7 page contract
was necessary.
Yeah. So I just had a one pager in there, and I took the other contract out and shoved it in my back pocket, and I pulled it out, and we walked through the contract. It took me maybe 90 seconds. Here's my offer. Here's when we're going to close. It's cash, so on and so forth. And he was like, oh, this is great, and didn't sign it right there, but we got it signed that day.
Yeah,
So.
which is awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome.
It was.
Guys,
So essentially, though, when we bought it, we knew we were paying a little more than we wanted to pay. However, it was still a pretty good price. So at that point, though, we thought, all right, we're going to buy this, we're going to close on it, and we're going to either list it or we're going to put a couple grand in.
So let's talk about that real quick. So why didn't he want to list it himself? And I already know the answer. He did, because he had the tenant in place.
He
didn't want to come back. He didn't
Yeah.
want showings when he wasn't around. He didn't want to disturb the tenant, that sort of thing. So again, he just wanted to be done with the property as soon as possible. So again, he didn't want to list. He didn't want to deal with that hassle. So we're solving that problem for him. He can come in one day. He's scheduled who knows how many investor buyers to come out and look at it, and he was done with it. That's what he wanted. He just wanted to be done with it. So we solved the problem. We got him more than he was hoping to get for it. And again, win-win situation. We got a property for $156,000 that we thought was probably worth, I'd say, mid 200s, mid 240, 250.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how you finish the property.
Right. And the property was, it was occupant ready. It wasn't something that you're gonna be able to sell high end as far as get the highest ARV comparable to the comps that were there, but it was livable. You could move into it today. It definitely was a dated home. They hadn't updated it since, or hadn't done any work to it since they had purchased it 25 years ago. So it definitely needed some updates in terms of cabinets and flooring and light fixtures, but all in all, it was
tile work is that
too.
Beautiful
old pink, all
pink
that type
and
of
greens
stuff. But with that being said, I mean, it was in good condition, even though it needed to be updated and have a fresh look. The house was sound. The structure was great. It was clean. and people were living there. So yeah, great point, Mike. Great
Cool.
point.
So let's talk about the wholesale, wholetail, back and forth. What happened with this deal? So our point was, we're primarily a wholesale company. That is kind of our first, or our preferred method to quick cash is to wholesale most of our properties. We also do a lot of wholetailing. So in this one, we figured we were going to have to wholetail it, right? We figured we were going to buy it a little bit higher. Okay, we're going to have to just clean this one up and then list it. So that was really our plan from day one. We brought it back to Ray and Bill, and we discussed it amongst the managers, and we said, well, why don't we go ahead and try to list it as it is and see what we can do.
Now, when you say list it, Mike, we didn't just put it on our website and shop it to our buyers.
Correct.
We did do that, but that's not all we did. We listed it on the multiple listing service, on the MLS.
And that is legal. We listed it as owner by contract. So you have to disclose that you are actually the owner by contract. And
yeah, so sometimes you're gonna have sellers or property owners that you're gonna go buy a property from that are gonna resist that. They're gonna not understand what's going on. They're gonna have a problem with it. In this case, though, we told the individual, we said, hey, we're investors. We may do a rehab on this property and then sell it for a profit. We told him that from the beginning, or we may just sell it as is. And he didn't really care, because regardless of if we found a buyer or not, we were going to close on it. We made that very clear. We had proof of funds in hand. We said, listen, if we can flip this before we even have to close on it, good for us. We may do that. But you don't need to worry, because regardless of what we do with it, we are going to pay cash and close on it, period.
Yeah, and this was a no-out contract, too.
No-out contract. We had no contingencies. It was as is. So he could have essentially sued us for, breach. And I think the earnest money was like $2,500.
Yeah, we put up some decent earnings.
A couple $1,000. So he knew he was going to get something at a minimum. But back to the point, though, is we got his approval to list it owner by contract on the MLS, and that's what we did.
Okay, so we listed owner by contract. Our thought is, we're probably going to we may have to close on it and hold it. Depends on who the buyer is, all that. And we actually had a side bet with one of the managers.
Oh, he owes us a steak dinner, doesn't he?
He does. He owes us a steak dinner.
We're going to catch up on
801 Chop House.
Oh, that's going to be a good dinner.
Yeah. So we had a side bet. He said, I bet you that this is not going to go to an investor. There's no way an investor is going to pay more than what we paid for it. I think it's too high.
Right.
And I said, Bill, right now the rule is whatever you think it's going to sell for.
I guess we're calling him out.
Yeah. Well, it's not you, it's not me.
Yeah,
so you only got
50%.
Right. Our rule of thumb: add 10,000 and send it out.
Right.
And that really has been holding pretty true for a lot of our deals, and we're able to pay more. So we're not really profiting that much more, but we're actually able to pay more to the
do you remember
sellers.
what we listed it at, Mike? I know we sold it for $180, but I think we put it out at maybe $187.
I think it was $186 or something like that.
So we added a couple grand on it, knowing that they were going to negotiate us down, and it wasn't on the market for more than what?
Not even a week. I don't even think it was
4 or 5 days, maybe.
Right. Yeah,
and we had quite a few people wanted to go look at it. Now, we did have to coordinate those showings because it was occupied. So we weren't able to put a lockbox on it. We weren't able to, use a super box, any of that type of stuff. So essentially, what we did is we kind of herded all of the interested parties into small windows.
Exactly.
So we would say, hey, we're to list this on a Monday. We're going to show it Wednesday from 1 to 3 and Friday from 2 to 4. Come out and pick a date. And essentially, we got somebody that walked through it and said, I want it. They were a rehabber, investor, and they said, we'll pay you $180 for it. And boom.
Yeah, we said sold. So then we kind of transitioned and we said, okay, well, let's try to get a double close out of this. We sold it much more quickly than we thought, at a price much higher than we really thought we'd be able to. So we went ahead and, again, we just said, let's try to double close it. So we worked with the seller and
now,
the
what would have
buyer.
been? I'm going to interrupt for a second. What would have been the advantage of doing that, Mike, versus what we had prior wanted to do? Double closing it.
Double closing. The advantage of double closing. Go back and listen to our other ones. Is you don't have to fund the deal.
Zero money out of pocket, guys.
Zero money out of pocket. Exactly. So if you can close it the same day, you don't have to fund it.
Now again, check your state, check your title company. In Missouri, where we live, we're able to do what's called a dry fund, double close. So if we can line up our A to B and our B to C, we essentially have zero money out of pocket. We don't need to go out and hire or work with a transactional funder. We can essentially just get both of the people to show up at the title company the same day, and the C buyer, the end buyer's money just flows straight through us to the seller, and we wouldn't have to do a dime. So again, we tried to set this up. We worked really hard to try to get these two dates to align, which would have essentially turned our Wholetail into a wholesale.
Right.
And
that would have been beautiful.
It would have been beautiful.
That's our
Absolutely.
preferred option.
But unfortunately, the buyer was using a line of credit, and they needed to get an appraisal, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But we just weren't able to get them to be able to close on the exact same day.
Right, and
no
then we've got
deal.
a seller that's out of state, and there's
right, and we had already made a promise to the seller, and we wanted to keep our word. So we said, no problem, we will just close on this deal. So we went to the title company with 156 and bought it. And then, what was it, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 days later? I mean, it wasn't long, maybe a week tops.
Yeah, it was a couple weeks later. Yeah.
Was it
I think it was about 2 weeks later.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. So 2 weeks later. So we had 2 weeks of holding costs. But, we have a line of credit, so we were essentially maybe paying $12, $15 a day.
Now, the other thing we want to point out, too, though, is we also get the property insured. If we're closing you want to get an insurance policy on it because, quite frankly, you're almost gambling at that point.
You are if you don't have insurance on it. That's a great point, Mike. So we had $156,000 invested plus some closing costs. So
yeah, if that property burns down,
we would have owed the bank that 156.
Yeah,
every penny of it.
Right. So again,
we had insurance. I think we paid $250 for these short-term insurance policies on vacant houses.
Right. We're investors, not gamblers.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Yeah,
great point.
You don't want to gamble. That's the reason the insurance is there.
Right.
It stinks to pay it, but again, it's definitely worth it in my opinion.
Absolutely. Long story short though, 2 weeks later we went back to the closing table with the same property, and we sold it for $180. So we were able to pay back the bank loan that we had, which was essentially the line of credit plus the interest plus the closing costs plus the $250 that we had paid to insure it, which covered our rear ends on any crazy thing that could have happened with fire or whatnot.
Pro tip: if you're going to wholetail a property, it is going to make sense for you to use the same title company if you can.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Mike.
Why,
Fantastic
Dave? Why
point.
do you need to do that?
Well,
just real quick,
I'm
let's
going to
give
shoot
them
from the hip here, but from past experience, if you use the same title company, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to insure that property
for the
second time for the end buyer. And the reason is because sometimes it takes the title company a little bit of time to get all the documents recorded and get all the liens paid off and all that type of stuff. Not only paid off, but like record of them being paid off. So if you use the same title company, they already have all the paperwork to show, hey, this transaction was successful a week or two or whatever ago, or you could have even been 2 days ago. And whenever you're going to sell it, it just kind of streamlines the entire process for the title insurance.
Right. And so title insurance, and so if you went to a different title company, that transaction may or may not have even been recorded with your state or your city or county or whatever it was. So the other title company may not even be able to see that you own the property. So it's just
right away.
Absolutely. It can create headaches. So it makes sense.
That's
if you
great pro tip.
It's going to be a lot faster if you make sure you try to use the same title company. So just a little heads up.
Such a great tip.
You definitely want to try to do that.
So yeah, to sum it up, we had a successful Wholetail to Wholesale, back to Wholetail. We didn't, we were trying to line up that whole sale, but we weren't able to line them up. But no big deal. We were able to purchase it. We paid a reasonably fair price for it. We found an investor buyer that wanted to rehab it, and he got a good deal as well because he was going to probably put 20, 30, maybe 35 grand into it. But he would have sold it for, $240, $250. So he essentially probably made 25, 30 grand on the deal.
Or he could be holding it as a rental himself.
And that's possible too. That's very possible.
Yeah.
Long story short, what did we profit on that deal, Mike? How much did we make?
So the gross was $18,405, and then it depends on your interest rates and your insurance rates. You're gonna have to take out a little bit for that. But it was pretty close to, $17,500 for this deal.
$17,500.
So it's important, be able to pivot, make sure you kind of know your market, and just roll with it. Again, this deal, we didn't know what was going to happen. We just knew it was a good deal. We're going to make something of it.
Absolutely. And it was a great learning experience too, because not only did we get a free steak dinner out of it, which we still need to redeem.
We do.
But we were kind of testing the market a little bit. We didn't know exactly how much we would get for it if we were to list it owner by contract. And worst case scenario, we figured, hell, we'll just rehab the house. We're going to get it at a decent price anyway. So we threw it out there, and sure enough, we had an offer on it. We were like, hell yeah, let's take it. This is a great offer. It's a win-win. Everybody wins. The seller won, us as the middle buyer, We won because we were able to make $17,500 on it. But the end buyer, the guy that's going to either hold it as a rental or rehab it, he got the property at a great price too. So it was a complete win-win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Absolutely.
it. Great case study, Mike.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Guys, thanks for listening so much to our Wholetail Wholesale episode here. If you haven't gone out and checked out the free wholesale course, please do that. freewholesalecourse.com.
Right.
You can check out any of our properties that we have available at discountpropertyinvestor.com. And closing quote for the day, Dave. What do we want to end it with?
Well, you had mentioned a quote to me earlier, but I totally forgot it. But I'm just going to go from the hip here.
Sure.
Consistent, persistent action. I've said it before in a quote. I'm going to say it again, guys. Consistently be persistent and take action. Period. That is the key to success in any business. It doesn't matter if you are a real estate investor or you are teaching piano lessons out of your basement. If you are consistently, persistently acting to build your business and improve yourself every day, you will be successful.
That's great. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Discount Property Investor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach a wider audience. We would also appreciate it if you left us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. Thanks in advance for your support. And remember, you make your money when you buy and get paid when you sell. Now let's go build some wealth.